My name's Trish Roberts. So I took a few days off Facebook just recently and social media in general to do some work on the house that we're building, and also looking after the yard, which is rather large. And I also noticed my mental state had sort of somewhat improved from just not seeing all the constant, negativity and trolling one has to endure just to be, part of social media, basically. And I think that, I've noticed over time, and probably you have too, that if you're on the left, and I mean, real left, not left as in Democratic Party or that kind of faux left. But if you're, part of sort of left-leaning circles, that there's been a lot more noticeably coordinated efforts to by trolls. I don't know if they're paid trolls or what they are really, but there's a definite coordinated effort happening, particularly on Facebook, but I'd say probably Twitter and the like, where you'll notice if there is for example, today I made the mistake of looking on RT.com, which is lots and lots of trolls there, because the anti-Russian propaganda is has been going on for quite a while, and I'm sure there's paid trolls on RT in the comments section, and they're paid, to sort of derail any threads on Russian TV, on the RT.com site on Facebook. And today I saw this article. It was about Islamophobia, how Islamophobia is being used by right-wing people to increase Islamophobia, to get more sort of members on their Twitter accounts, etc. So they're using it, in fact. And of course, I look in the comments section, and then I see a right-wing person, he's obviously a right-wing, sort of saying something Islamophobic, and trying to deny that that's actually happening as well. And then, of course, 100 people like that comment. And then, of course, a whole bunch of other people either approve of it in the comments, in the reply section, and that, of course, means it goes up to the top. And so it always appears that it's always the case that the troll comments, just like a substance we know in toilet bowls, it floats to the top, and there's and then there's a whole bunch of people like it, or people take exception to it and reply to it, and it just sort of stays there. And then other troll comments that are supporting the Islamophobia or whatever, they also, were underneath this comment as well, like in second and third place and that sort of thing. So it's like, it's a, I've noticed, particularly, I've been on Facebook since it started. I didn't do much for the first couple of years on it, or the first year or so, but I've noticed that, it's, the algorithms are crazy. I'm sure other people have noticed that. The algorithms, I don't see hardly anybody that I'm interested in, particularly left sites. I don't even see some of my friends in the news feed. My own pages suffered greatly. I had a vegan page called Live Vegan, which had about 58,000 members. Not that that really means that much anyway. I don't know. It seems like, well, it doesn't mean that much now, because nobody really gets to see much of what goes on pages anymore. It's up to Facebook if they decide by their algorithms if you're allowed to see what is on pages that you've liked or whatever. So But my page Live Vegan, it was going up and up, and in 2012 it just came to a screeching halt. And it was getting at one point between 50 and 250. Now I don't know if they're real members coming on, but there was certainly a lot more participation, and there was different countries, members from different countries like Latin America were coming on. And it was really starting to get traction, where people actually saw, what I was posting, and it could have become a real community. And then, of course, it just came to a screeching halt, literally, almost like overnight. Then it started going backwards. And really, the content hadn't changed. So, it started going backwards, and that was the end of that. And now it's actually 53,000. It's actually been going backwards. And, if you post it, if I post anything on there, it's basically hardly anybody sees it. So I don't really bother too much with it now. I still post stuff on it, but I just don't bother much anymore. And that's really, that's what social media has become now. And there is no real alternative that gets the same sort of membership of, there's the same sort of amount of people on it as, say, Facebook. So there's really no particular alternative. And YouTube is appalling too, really. Like, I have a site on YouTube. The username is Vegantrove, Vegantrove, so feel free to subscribe to it. This is where I post most of my my vlogs and live streams. And excuse me, there's a little spider crawling on my phone. We have a lot of little insects here. I have to be very careful not to hurt them. I think he's gone. Anyway, so there's another one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I have this YouTube channel, Vegantrove, and it's and it probably gets it gets a few views and stuff. Probably if I was talking about Pizzagate or something like that, I'd probably get a lot more, but I'm not really, I just do vlogs about different things. I'm not really into getting, I'm not really into sort of drama stuff, just more commentary about the personal and the political and veganism. And but that site, if you've ever done a live stream on YouTube, wow, it's, you get trolls galore, and they're just people really, I really think actually there definitely exists, there are troll groups that actually pride themselves on going on to different sites and trolling people just for the fun of it, and then they come back and brag about it. Isn't that sad? What a kind of a life mission, sort of that's your life's purpose, is to troll social justice sites. How sad that is. But if you've ever seen any sort of live stream chat, live chats, they're quite, they're really either crude, misogynist, Islamophobic. The misogyny on YouTube is just outrageous. It's sort of stomach churning, and I'm sure that there are paid trolls that are doing this, and also because corporations, they don't want any sort of minority groups, or they certainly don't want to be paying women any more money than they're already underpaying women. They're already not supplying women with what they need. They're not even giving them a livable wage. And so corporations and capitalism in general benefit from misogyny. They benefit from Islamophobia. They benefit from transphobia and homophobia. They benefit from anything that might interfere, any social justice issue that might interfere with their profits. If for example, they cater to the lowest common denominator in a way. And this is how YouTube is. You know, YouTube's owned by Google, and Google is seriously censoring. It's making sure that Russian television and RT news sources, they've actually made it so that that RT gets a much lower, like when you do a search, they don't really come up until much down, way further down. And they've got other things, of course, that they sort of, the algorithms that they have ensure that the corporate mainstream media are the ones that get the best viewings, the ones that are establishment mouthpieces, which is all corporate mainstream media. You know, that's what Google does, and Google owns YouTube, and Google has been censoring various YouTube sites that it doesn't agree with, and sometimes disables them. You know, and I've started a BitChute site, BITCHUTE, BitChute.com. That's not too bad. There's a couple of other sites, except you can't upload anything greater than 30 minutes on minds.com, or that's minds.com, and the other one I saw was vid.me, vidme.com. Unfortunately, they don't allow videos that are longer than 30 minutes, and I don't really like to just fit in with a 30-minute duration just to please a site. But anyway, there are other sites that are available, but basically all these various very popular sites are becoming almost untenable and unusable, and they're also just really in many ways propping up all these discriminations by either these paid troll armies that are going there and leaving umpteen, you know, awful comments in the comment section of these various sites, or they're either, you know, sort of people that are doing it for fun, as in armies of trolls doing it for fun, or they're people that are being paid. And I wouldn't like to take a bet on it, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are paid trolls from corporations. And there is also, I mean, it's been proven, there's the CIA and you know, and the various you know, there are like Stratfor and organizations like that are sort of, they're always intent on assisting corporations. So I'm sure they're involved in various you know, sort of negative interventions on, you know, and trolling. You know, so if you've noticed this awful kind of pattern on social media now that just seems to be getting to the point where it's so awful that, I mean, I don't know about you, but you know, if you're trying to look at various left-wing things and having to seek them out, and when you do, you know, there's just awful trolling on it. You know, it doesn't make you want to look in the comment section, and that's the idea. It's kind of like to shut down any sort of discussion or anything, but it sort of doesn't do one's head much good, sort of having to witness all this sort of hate, this hateful, toxic stuff. You know, it also gives you an unrealistic and imbalanced view of the world, that when you see hundreds of people liking some, you know, Islamophobic thing that someone has said, and it being at the top of the comment section, it gives people an unrealistic and disproportioned view of people, of the public opinion. And that's also another, you know, sort of motivation for that, you know, for that trolling. And it's also intended, of course, to shut down sort of discussion and shut down people who want to leave thoughtful comments. And one can almost tell the difference between somebody who is, you know, sort of somebody who is trolling just for fun, or as a sort of like a, almost like a psyops thing, and someone who is seriously, say, a right-wing person, you can tell that, and they're leaving comments, you can tell the difference. And I'm seeing more and more of what just looks like sort of very, very, there's no dedication in it, but the dedication is to upset a thread, but you can tell that they're not, that it's almost like a job, for them. And, at this point, I mean, it really is coming to the point very quickly where social media and almost like the internet is almost becoming unusable. It used to be a great tool. It was a better tool about 10 years ago or more, 10 years or more. I mean, it used to be much better. But now it's so controlled and so artificial, and there is such a and corporations and government have learned how to manipulate it, and they're participating in the manipulation, on Facebook and elsewhere. And the NSA, of course, is spying through Facebook and elsewhere. All of this, it's become sort of just a toxic mess, and you can still get messages out, but I mean, I saw Ravi Martin's on my friends list, and she says she finds now her Facebook page is almost sort of useless because she posts stuff and hardly anybody sees it. And even like 6 years ago, when she was doing Breaking the Set, more people were participating in her page, and more people saw her stuff. So it's just suffocating the outreach of social justice issues. And, I find, I do vegan live streams on a regular basis. And lucky I'm able to do them on a page where there's there's about 118,000 people on it. And so it sort of seems to break through for some reason, and people will sort of see what I'm doing at the time. But of course, and you also get organised trolling on that too. When people get whiff of it, they sort of, think that's fun too. But I'm used to that. But but if it wasn't for, and who knows how long I'll be able to do it on that site. It's like, and you don't know, and you also don't know how long that site's going to be functional. I mean, it might end up like my vegan page, Live Vegan. Who knows? It's really up to the Facebook, CEO and all the corporate interests, really, isn't it? So, it's a really sad thing. It's a sad thing, and it's also very frustrating. And I sometimes wonder. I'm not really sure. Here comes a little newly adopted cat who thinks the tripod is a special thing to rub her face on, so I'm going to have to hold on to it. That's the thing. I mean, how long? I don't know how long the internet or social media is going to be a useful tool. I think if it continues this way, I think it's almost to the point for me, for the sort of thing that I do, and some of my friends, it's almost becoming unusable. It's sort of like, it's just if you're not, even if you have something like say on Facebook, you have see first, that you're supposed to see their sort of posts first. Even that doesn't particularly work either, so. And of course, if you're talking about Palestine, which I do on occasion, and talking about topics where they don't, you've got a heavy, there's a heavy push by the apartheid state of Israel to sort of quash any kind of anything that's going to out their the abominable situation they put Palestinians in. So, you know, if the word Palestine comes up anywhere in your sort of subject matter or in the comment, you know, the information section, it doesn't, you know, you might find your page or your, you know, whatever is put on heavy, you know, sort of like suppression in a way. I sometimes wonder if that's what happened to Live Vegan, my Facebook page, that I was talking about some other social justice issues. But I don't know, sometimes I think they just like to make you pay, you know, they want you to pay literally for having a site. And so unless you're willing to pay, they're not going to let you get any more members, basically, or let your stuff be seen. And I wonder if they'll eventually do that to live streams. You know, at the present time, I don't know if you've noticed on, say, for example, Facebook, but live streams seem to have more reach, you know, to people that aren't only interested in that issue. And I wonder if they've just made it that way so that people think that, you know, live streams are the way to go. And then when everybody's using live streams, then of course they start to tighten up the algorithms, and the next thing you know, they're asking you for money to improve the reach of live streams and all that kind of thing. You know, capitalism is so, what an awful way for us to have, what an awful kind of a structure we've made on the planet, you know, where everything is valued based on how much money you can spend, or how much money you get, or how much advertising you get for something, you know, like shows, you know, sort of, you know, shows sort of, for example, get cancelled if they don't get enough people watching them, even if that show might be a real quality show. If they're not getting enough people watching, or if the advertisers aren't getting enough money or people watching them, and they'll just cancel it, even if it's a good show. And trashy shows that appeal to, you know, a sort of a, you know, is more mainstream and maybe, you know, has more violence in it or whatever, you know, they'll do better. And you know, so that they'll continue on and get, you know, sort of get new seasons, and anything, and other things that are really good just get cancelled. So, you know, it's all just sad, this whole system based on unfettered capitalism and neoliberalism. It's such a cancer, and it, you know, it needs to change. It needs to end. We need to envision a new way of being that does not involve this sort of cancer of neoliberalism and capitalism. So anyway, you know, when I started this video, I was saying how, you know, I'd been off Facebook mostly. I mean, I've been on it a little bit, but basically not really reading much. And I was starting to feel better in my mind, you know, starting to feel less overwhelmed. And I think, you know, the whole sort of mega trolling situation that is happening on social media, Twitter and all of this, really can really get one down, you know. I think, for example, I remember hearing Abby Martin say on Twitter she has to take time off Twitter because she says it's just toxic. I haven't found Twitter to be that toxic, but then I'm not a journalist like she is. You know, she's a sort of a fairly well-known journalist, and she does great shows about U.S. empire, and of course even the so-called pretend left don't like that, you know, because they love a good war, the Democratic Party and all that kind of thing. So, you know, she gets trolled, you know, by probably the pretend left and the right. But, you know, so I haven't noticed Twitter being so bad, but I'm sure the algorithms are, I mean, they've admitted that they, during the election, they were suppressing, I think it was the Podesta emails about Hillary Clinton. they were suppressing information about that. So you see, it's like eventually, you almost start preaching to the choir, really. And on top of that, but I find, excuse me, YouTube and Facebook are just appalling for, for misogyny and transphobia and homophobia and Islamophobia, just awful. So I don't know how this is going to play out particularly, or how it's going to end, but if it keeps going like this, which I imagine it is going to, and if they're trying to do their best to regulate the internet and end net neutrality, and I wonder if they'll eventually win with that. But it's already kind of a mess, the internet, and the ability to get information without there being some sort of a filter or whatever. It's getting to be less useful, less user, less real, and so I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what people think about this and how they think it's going to go and what might be an answer to this. But the internet has been a great way for people to organize, and the establishment, governments, they don't want people to organize. They don't want people to compare notes to organize. They don't want that. There's been during this last 30 years, neoliberalism has done it. It's basically broken down a lot of communities through job insecurity and all sorts of things. Even Alan Greenspan said that job insecurity was good for basically he said it was good for corporations. He didn't actually spell out and say it was good for corporations, but he said job insecurity is good for the economy. And the idea is, that you make people feel so insecure in their jobs that they're willing to be paid as, pittance for a job as long as they can be employed. And that's why you end up with, say, in the United States, people have 2 or 3 jobs. It's ridiculous, and they can barely make ends meet with 2 or 3 jobs. You've probably heard me on occasion talking about MMT, and some people might think, what is that, and is this, what is it? Well, I'm going to leave some links in the information section, and I invite you to check them out. I'm just a novice with it. I may always be a novice, I don't know, but it's an important issue. It's about the economy, and it's about, for example, if you live in the United States, the US Congress actually holds the purse strings. The economic reality is that federal taxes don't fund spending, and that, as you've noticed, the US Congress can always get money just like that for war. And that's because the US is not tied to the gold standard. It's monetarily sovereign. It cannot go broke. The US with the terrible, debt and all this kind of thing. You really need to look into it, because it's the real economic reality of this, because we've been fed a lot of traditional economic lies. And don't be surprised that the government is lying to you about how the economy works, because it lies to you about a lot of other things. That's what governments do, they lie. So that's why I bring up MMT, because it's not a theory, even though it's called modern monetary theory. It's not a theory, it's actually just a description of how the economy works right now. It doesn't need to be implemented, it just needs to be recognized how the economy works. And how the economy works is that the Congress could actually afford to pay for healthcare for all, it could provide a federal job guarantee, it could pay for all the infrastructure that needs to be fixed. The United States could have free education. There's a whole lot, and because the US literally cannot go broke. And taxes do not fund spending. Federal taxes do not fund spending. They're deleted when they come in. They're literally deleted. I mean, it's important, taxation is important, but not for the reasons we think it is. So anyway, you need to look up, you need to understand MMT, and then press your Congress representatives, if you live in the United States, to do what they can afford right now, and that is they can afford free health care. They're just sort of lying to you when they say they need to increase taxes to be able to afford free health care. They're lying to you. They don't have to increase taxes, do they, to fund to pay out $700 billion to the military, do they? They can do it just like that. And the reason is because they don't need to increase taxes to fund spending. If they can afford that on the military, they can afford that on free health care. They can provide free health care. They just choose not to, because they're not serving the public. They're not serving you and I. They're serving corporations and the military-industrial complex and the government, who their interest is in imperialism. So that's why you need to understand MMT. And you can look up new economic perspectives.org to find out more. Or you can go to the Facebook page, Real Progressives, on Facebook. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to say, really. I'm feeling a bit disillusioned with using social media at this point. I really don't know how useful it is, and in fact, not only do I not think it's that useful in some ways, but I also think it's giving a unrealistic view of things, which is sort of affecting people's mental state. And the other thing I wanted to say is that, like today I read that Facebook is going to employ 3,000 people or something. Apparently there's been, Facebook is known to actually negatively impact people's mental health. And there's been increases in suicidal ideation, and Facebook has said it's employing 3,000 people to address that, which is funny because they can't even, when you complain about, when you ask questions of Facebook, or when you when you make a complaint about Islamophobia or transphobia or whatever, they don't care a toss. They don't care about misogyny. So why on earth does anybody think that they're going to care about people who have suicidal ideation? The only reason they might care is if they think that their brand is being interfered with people killing themselves on live streams or whatever, or murdering other people on live streams. So that might be why they have suddenly said they're going to do that. But the thing is that I'd say that part of the depression that people might feel using social media is that the amount of trolls, whether they're paid trolls or from those troll groups who actually sort of brag to one another about trolling, that they're sort of absolutely all over the place, and in huge numbers, and they're sort of like they swarm to various sites. And I think that probably, I know that it doesn't really do me a lot of good seeing unfortunate comments by obvious trolls, and I'm sure it doesn't do a lot of other people very good, particularly if you're from a minority group. So I'd say, but do you think Facebook would think about sort of controlling that? Not at all. Because they just see it as, well, that's great, more people commenting. It makes, when somebody says something hateful, which is regular, it's a frequent thing, you get a whole bunch of people either joining in on it or trying to counter it, and they just see that as, they just say to the advertisers, look how many people are, sort of commenting on our site, on our social media platform. That's all they care about in the numbers. They don't care particularly the quality, or they care about the quantity. So anyway, it's just an abomination in a way. This social media anyway is sort of almost like a, you could say it's a reflection of the state of our society in a way, but you could also think of it in this way, that it's actually an artificial and manufactured representation of our society, manufactured sort of so that it disempowers anybody who's trying to work for social justice. So anyway, I guess until I find some sort of alternative, I may end up having to sort of just do stuff in, spend more time. I mean, I used to use social media because it had such a big reach that I couldn't get in the rural situation I live in. But I'm not sure if that's going to be the case in the future. It may actually be, I may actually reach more people in my rural areas doing vegan talks or whatever than I might have the access to on social media. I mean, it's becoming like that. Anyway, so I'd be interested to hear what you think about it. Feel free to leave comments in the comments section. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.